Hello and welcome to our Who Should I Call Today webinar. My name is Cayla Priest and I am your host. I am on the CINC live events team. So you may have met me at CINC University in Atlanta or at one of our other live webinars that we host. I'm very excited for you to be here today, but we came here to talk about who should I call today. So what is this webinar all about? This webinar is helping you to prospect and follow up. Prospecting, of course, is going to be for new leads that we have not spoken to yet. And then following up is, of course, for those people we have had a conversation with, and now we're checking back in. We are following up to see, has anything changed in their home search? Are they ready to go out and start viewing homes, etc.? So the main focus of this is definitely going to be on the prospecting, and we'll be talking mainly about the systems that CINC has created for you here in the CINC dashboard to be able to prospect and to follow up more efficiently, meaning less time in the platform, less effort, but increased results. So I'm going to be teaching you my tips and tricks after my 4.5 years here at CINC. What have I learned that I can help you with? And then at the end, we will talk briefly on the follow-up because that is super important as well. Now, throughout the webinar, I will also be dropping in some statistics from some different studies that CINC has looked at to kind of help us develop these best practices. Now, in addition to those statistics, that's not the only thing we've looked at to help us develop best practices. Also, last year, CINC celebrated our 10th anniversary, which was very exciting. So over those past 10 years, we have worked with some really high producing, successful agents and teams, and we have taken away their best practices as well and been able to work them into the system that we know that works. So I'm excited to share that with you today. And so we're going to be looking at basically, how do we handle a new lead that just came in? How do I know which one to call today? How do I know if I've got, say, 300 leads assigned to me? How do I know which of those 300 to call so I'm not having to, flip through and pick at random and cherry pick, which is a big no-no. So how do we find the people who it's worth our time to call today? So with that intro done, let's get into the platform. I am here in a site that we mainly use for testing, but you can kind of see we've got some weird names in here. Cayla filter test. I was in here 28 days ago doing a test. So we use this because it is a live client site, meaning that this is exactly the same as the dashboard that you all use when you sign into your CINC platforms as well. So that way I'm able to show you the awesome filters that CINC has created to help you prospect and follow up. But also not in a actual client site where we have people registering to buy or sell a home. So this test site actually does belong to Lance Simpson, who is one of our CINC University trainers out of Nashville. So we'll see lots of Tennessee data on here. I'm seeing lots of hellos in the chat from and where you are checking in from. So hello to everyone. I'm very excited to have you here. I'm here in Marietta, where CINC's headquarters are. So anyway, I had to get that, say my hellos to everyone that's saying hello in the chat before we move on. So like I said, this is going to be when a new lead comes in, how do I know when is the right time to call? How am I picking out the right person to call? How do I make sure that I'm being super efficient? So CINC knows that, depending on your lead flow, how long you've been working, on your specific team site, how old your site is, you may have 10 leads or you may have 1,000 leads. And it gets really tricky when we get over like 20, 30, 40 leads to know who is it worth my time to call today. So we put together what we called saved filters to help you know exactly who you need to call today. Hence the name of our webinar, Who Do I Call Today? So if you're following along with me, or if you're just, watching, whichever way you learn best, I am going to navigate over to saved filters. So you'll notice we have filters, saved filters, pipelines, and labels. And those are the 4 pieces in this menu that everyone should see over on the left. So we're in the leads dashboards, but now I want to click onto saved filters. And so you'll notice that I have 4 P filters, P1, 2, 3, and 4. And I also have 3, or 4, depending on if you've created one, and I'll show you how to create this 4th one if you don't see it. F filters, F1, 2, and 3, and then this F4, which I'll show you how to create when we're on the webinar today. So I'm going to start with my P filters. Now this is named P for prospecting. You can also consider P for priority, whichever one makes sense to you and you like to use. I prefer P for prospecting. It's kind of like Sesame Street, right? We've got P for prospecting and a little sneak peek from later, F for follow-up. So that's going to be how we differentiate between these. So I'm seeing that it's hard to see the screen for the filters. I will see if I can zoom in, but if it messes up the format of my screen, I might have to come back down. So hopefully that is a little bit better. We're looking here at P1, 2, 3, and 4 first. And actually, we are focusing on calling today, so I'm only going to speak on P1, 2, and 3, and we'll make some sense out of that as we come through it. So my first opportunity to drop some statistics from a study that was done. And this study is one that you can Google if you're interested in seeing some more numbers related to it. It was done by InsideSales.com in conjunction with MIT, and it was eventually reviewed and then published by the Harvard Business Review. So we know that it has been peer reviewed and been published. So what this study looked at by Inside Sales and MIT was how internet leads like to be communicated with, what they respond to. And by internet leads, we just mean a lead that registered on the internet. In other words, I went to Google and I typed in homes for sale in Nashville, Tennessee. I saw an ad or a result there in Google. I clicked on it. It asked me to register. I put in my information, and then my information goes to, in this case, the agent on the site. So that's all we mean by an internet lead. Someone who started their search online, which is where most people do start their searches. So basically, this study said, once a lead registers like that, what does it take for an agent to do to get in touch with this person? And what can an agent do to be more efficient in getting in touch with these people, these internet leads? And the first part of that study is that they found a higher likelihood of qualifying, or in other words, having a good conversation with this lead if you called within the first 5 minutes. And anecdotally, we know that that's true, because we know that if someone, answers the phone in that first 5 minutes, likely they are still on the site doing a search. They haven't moved on to something else. But it also told us that if someone doesn't answer the phone on that first call, it's more likely that they answer on the 6th dial. So in other words, these filters here are going to help you get that first call out. And then if they don't answer on that first call, it's going to help make sure that we are making enough dials to get up to at least that 6th phone call. Now, if you've been working internet leads for any length of time, you know that not everyone answers even on the 6th dial. And so I think the data there is about 90%, they're 90% more likely to answer on the 6th dial. So that's not 100%, right? So there are some where you're even going to need to call 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. I see people posting on our Facebook group all the time, closing leads 1,400 days after they came into the platform. So persistence is the name of the game here. And these filters are going to help you be persistent more consistently. So our P1 filter, let's take a look at this. Actually, let me back up a second, and I'm going to go ahead and drop another statistic from that study that will help us kind of make sense of how to use these filters, and then we'll get into the why. So our study tells us that there are 2 hours of the day that leads are more likely to answer the phone. And the highest time, or the highest chance they had of answering the phone, was between 4 and 5 p.m. So between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. And as I've worked with teams, I've seen them even have success bumping that out until 6. If you're in an area like Atlanta, where I am, where we've got really bad traffic, maybe people are trying to get back home after working, you can even say calling between 4 and 6 is a great idea. The second time that was most productive during the day was 8 to 9 in the morning. And so that kind of makes sense. 8 to 9, that's people before they've kind of gotten their day started. It's before they're in the office. And then 4 to 6 is when we're getting ready to go home and when we're on our way home. It does not mean that people will not answer at other times. It just means that if I was going to be purposeful in my time that I'm calling and utilize some time blocking, in other words, looking at my schedule and saying every day this week, I am going to prospect from 8 to 9 and from 4:30 to 5:30. And that means I am more likely to get some answers during that time. Now, again, especially as more people work from home, it's possible that people now over the past year and a half are more likely to answer the phone during the middle of the day. In fact, when we do CINC University and we do day 3, which is conversion day, we still see a high answer rate when we're calling around like 2:30, 3:30. So I say that to say, if you are time blocking, it's really nice to go ahead and block out those hours of the day that the study tells us are productive. 8 to 9 and sometime between 4 and 6. Now, if something does come up one day and your morning got shot and you don't have time to call that morning, I would move that back further in the day. Again, no time is the perfect time. The best time is the time that you can do it. And I'm also a big believer, you'll hear me if you join any of our other webinars, that my kind of motto is 30 minutes is better than no minutes. So even though I'm saying try to call an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon, if all you can do that day is 30, it's better than nothing. So I'll get off my soapbox on making sure that you have at least 30 minutes to call a day, but it really is important because it's the agents that have the time and make the time to do their prospecting calls and do their follow-up calls. Those are the agents that are having success working in their CINC platforms. So now that that's out of the way, we understand about needing to be persistent and calling a lot, calling frequently. We know about the times to call. Let's go ahead and say that it's this afternoon and it's 4:30 and you're going to call from 4:30 to 5:30. What can I do during that hour to make sure I'm as successful as possible? And so that's when we're going to get into our P filters. So let's say it's 4:30. What do? I like to consider P1, 2, and 3 to be my prospecting to-do list. In other words, I'm going to click into each of them, call the leads that are in it, and then cross them off. So let's go ahead and break down what these different filters are, why they're created, and how you can use them. So again, we're in make-believe land. It's 4:30 this afternoon. It's time for my call block to start. So I'm going to open up my saved filters and click into P1. So I'm going to show you some really easy ways you can always see what these leads have in common. Why did we pick these leads out to show you? So here we have the name of our filter. It's P1 call now. So we're even telling you call these leads now. And then below that, we see this little blue bubble. And in the tech world, that's called a breadcrumb. So kind of like Hansel and Gretel dropped breadcrumbs so they could be able to find their way back. Tech breadcrumbs help us figure out how we even got here in the first place. So a breadcrumb is essentially the criteria that this filter is using. In other words, CINC wanted to put together a filter for you that showed you all of your leads that have not had a dial made to them yet. And how do we know that? We know that because the pipeline stage is still new lead. And if we look in our new lead column, we can actually see that. All of these leads still are marked as new lead. Now, could it be that the agent that this is assigned to actually has made the call and just hasn't adjusted the pipeline stage? That's very possible. We're going to talk throughout today's webinar about adjusting the pipeline stage, what each of them mean, when you can make that change. But it's a good habit to get into to call either from the CINC agent app, because when you do call from the app, it will automatically move that lead from new lead to attempted contact for you. So that's a piece of automation that we'll take care of for you. Now, if you are also using the CINC dialer, it'll do the same thing. Now, if you're just typing the number into your cell phone, that's fine, but you will need to manually make that move over to attempted contact or beyond. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when I click on this pipeline stage, I see all of our stages here. And if I called this person and they didn't answer, I would move them to attempted contact. So the goal here is to empty this filter out. Now, if you are like this one, and again, this is a test site, so it's a little not as clean as we'd like it, we can see that this agent, me in this case, I'd have 151 leads in P1. That could be a lot of calls to make. Now, if you want to be really persistent and knock them all out in one day, awesome. You can split it in half, or you could just call the first page today, the second page tomorrow, etc. However you want to break it up, the goal is to have this at 0. So that way, when you finish your appointment that you were at, and you wanted to check to see, did I get any new leads that came in while I was in this appointment, you can open P1 and immediately see who you need to call now. This is also beneficial in the morning when you are getting on first thing in the morning to check your P1 to see, did I have new leads that came in overnight? Now, once we have accomplished that by getting all of our leads either moved to attempted contact, contacted, appointment set, or beyond, then we can move on to our next saved filter, our next P filter. So I would, again, if I'm treating this as my to-do list, I'd cross P1 off, I'd click into P2. Now, because we have so many leads in P1 that haven't had that pipeline stage moved, our P2 is currently empty. But let's go ahead and talk about what would make a lead show up in here. So we see the name again, P2 call again. And we see we have 2 blue breadcrumbs down here. We have registration date in the last 14 days, and the pipeline stage is attempted contact. And so what this means is that these are newer, uncontacted leads. Now, if I could flip back into P1 for a moment, we can see that we should probably have some leads in here, or maybe not, because we haven't had anybody register recently. So the most recent registration is 36 days, meaning that actually no one has registered here in the last 14 days, meaning they don't fit the criteria. That's why we don't have anyone in here. Now, your sites that are not test sites that have people coming in all the time, you will see this be a great filter for you in order to catch newer, uncontacted people. So why do we want to capture people when they're new on the site? Well, of course, when they're new on the site, it means that they have kind of just started their home search. So it's a really great time to get introduced to a great agent, that's you, who can help them through the process. But it also means that it's less likely that they are on another site and already talking to another agent. Now, another piece of data, a statistic, is that we know that leads register on anywhere between 5 and 7 sites at a time. I'm sorry, I'm getting a note that I'm larger than the screen share. Is that true for everyone? It shouldn't. Okay, good. It shouldn't be. Thank you. I was about to say, I really messed up if that's true. Thank you everyone for telling me no. So it looks like, Cheryl, you may have a setting in your Zoom that you can adjust, probably by clicking on the video. It'll give you some other options on that. Okay, thank you everyone, appreciate it. So back to where we were. Leads register on anywhere between 5 to 7 sites, and that could mean other national competitors like Zillow, for example, or a brokerage site or something else. So we want to reach them as early as possible. Now, when I'm doing trainings in office, I do hear a lot of times, well, when I called, they, either they didn't answer, or I called, but it didn't seem like they really wanted, any help. And a lot of times that can be a scripting issue. And so Faye actually just sent in a question that's perfect timing. Will you be sharing a script that would be good to use when you make calls? I will at the very end, but I'll also invite you to join our scripting webinar, which is every other Monday, which gives you time to go way more in depth, because it's definitely a lot more than the opening line, but we will touch on that during the Q&A at the end. So we just want to reach people early because it's much easier to follow up and build a relationship with someone when we catch them at the very beginning of their home search. And so that's why P2 is so important. P1 is helping us when they first come in. P2 is helping us be persistent in making that second, third, fourth, fifth, even sixth phone call. It really will help us make sure we're making enough calls to give ourselves the better chance of getting a hold of someone. So once I've called all my leads in P2, I'm crossing it off and I'm clicking on P3. And so now we are seeing some more leads in here. So this will be a little bit easier for us to take a look at. Let me go ahead and sort this by registration date. And if you don't know what I just did on the screen, I'll show you how I did it in just a moment. So let's talk through our criteria of P3. P3 is call active, and you'll see we have now 3 breadcrumbs in here. And our first one is registration date, and it says custom date range. I'm here to tell you what that custom date range is. It is 15 days up to 5,000 days. So sometime, our P2, remember, was 14 days or less. And this is essentially now in P3, 15 days or more. So we're capturing now older leads, but they have to have been active in the last 30 days. So our second one here is last login date in the last 30 days. Older, active, but still uncontacted because the pipeline stage is still attempted contact. So these save filters are designed to help you get people when they're brand new, when they're still sort of new, when they're older and active. So this P3 filter is actually even my favorite because especially as your sites get older, as your site has been open with CINC longer, this filter here becomes more and more valuable because it's showing us people who registered some time ago, but they're coming back and they're active. And that happens a lot with people. In fact, from the last I heard, a typical time frame from a time a lead registers until they buy or sell is now 12 to 18 months. So it could be that we had people that registered around this time last year who, just wanted to kind of see what was out there. They said, these houses are too expensive. I need to give it time, for the market to correct a little bit. And then they kind of fell off because they really weren't quite sure if they were going to be making, that purchase decision anytime soon. But they continued to get property alerts from the site. And so now that it seems like the market's cooled off a little, it's kind of trending a little bit back in a lot of areas towards being more of a buyer's market. Now there's maybe 3 offers on a home instead of 30. They're thinking, okay, it's time for me to dip my toe back in. And so they click on that property alert to see a home. They came to the site, that counts as a login. And so now, even though they registered a year ago and never answered the phone, they're back active again, giving you another opportunity. So let's take a look at some different ways we can use this filter because it's got some opportunity for us to call these leads in a different order. So you may have noticed, if you've never clicked on them, you may have still noticed that most of these headers here, if we hover over them, they turn blue and they have a little down arrow. What that means is that we can actually use this column to change the order of the leads that we see here. Now, the default order, or sort as it's called, the default way we sort these leads is by the registration date. And so we can see 82 days, 192 days, 196 days. So this is going down most recent registrations to least recent registrations. But if these are older leads that are active, is that maybe the best order for us to call them in? It's nice sometimes to switch it up a little bit. So I'll show you the #1 way we love to sort this P3 filter, to just call in a different order. And that's going to be by last touch. So you notice when I'm hovering over last touch, it turns blue. I can click and it gives me my options to sort by last touch. In this case, I would want to sort by last call, least recent. So that way I'm calling the people first that haven't had a phone call from me in a while. So when I sort by last call, least recent, I now get Brooke up top, who registered 192 days ago. but she was here, if you follow me over to the last login column, 24 hours ago for the 11th time. Now, when she registered 192 days ago, she told us that she wanted to move, buy or sell sometime in the past, because this time frame column is actually dynamic and it will count down until it says now and then past. Now, just because it says it's past doesn't mean that that's actually true, because in other words, why would she be logging back in? So we just never want to say, oh, it's past, I'm not calling this person. That's cherry picking. If you remember at the beginning, I said we don't like to cherry pick. That's bad. We call everyone, we give everyone the opportunity. Now we can also see in our price and city column that she did say that she was pre-qualified, but she was also a first-time home buyer. So this is a person who really needs our help because they've never been through this process before. Now, I do want to point out one other thing before we look at our next lead. Brooke has unsubscribed from texting and emailing, and I can see that because of these yellow icons beside the phone number and email. So this means she's unsubscribed from texting and emails. However, when a lead signs up on the site, they sign terms and conditions saying that they give consent to be called. They cannot actually unsubscribe from calling on the site. Now, of course, if someone tells you, hey, please don't call me anymore, you can either, mark them as do not contact or simply give them to someone else on your team. But Brooke here cannot unsubscribe from being called, so we would still call her. And we talk about this at CINC every week, or every month, I should say. Do we reference that someone has unsubscribed? I wouldn't. I would just call and have the same script that we will talk about in our Q&A at the end, and I'll touch on that again. So Jennifer, same deal, came in 202 days ago. It still says she's 6 to 18 months out, but she was here 2 days ago for the 79th time. And holy cow, look at all of this over here in her activity column. She has viewed 115 times. In other words, it could be 115 homes one time each, but more than likely it is. When I click on that, we can see she's looked at Myrtle Street 8 times, Ashley Street 5 times. So all those views add up to 115. She's creating some saved searches because CINC only creates one. So she's created 6 additional, and she's favorited 93 homes. So are these people that we absolutely want to call today? Yes. These are people who are basically raising their hand and saying, I am ready to get this process started more seriously. Now, let me show you another way that we can also sort to change the order that we're calling these leads in, and that's by last login, most recent. And now we can see we have someone else up top. Now I see that this has an invalid phone number, but it looks real to me. So I'd try to call it anyway and change that if it did come back as a good number. We can see these are very, very old leads that came in from an import because they came from another system. And then they are still using this site though. 3 hours ago for the 518th time, 5 hours ago for the 632nd time. But then we've even got someone still a little newer, 214 days ago. The time frame they gave us when they registered was around this time. And they were here 12 hours ago for the 16th time. And they are also giving us a lot of good data over here. So I'm pointing out all of these so you can kind of learn how to read your dashboard in a better way. This is how you can kind of do a quick audit of what's going on with this lead. What can you look for to try to let you know a little bit more about them even before you make that dial. Now I'm going to go ahead and change us back to our default registration date, most recent sort. And now we're just kind of back to where we started in P3. So those are our P1, 2, and 3, tongue twister, our P1, 2, and 3. These are our daily call filters. And when I say daily, I mean Monday through Friday. I want to see everyone dialing at least 1 hour a day, but if you've got the time, make it 2. Do the full hour in the morning and the full hour in the afternoon. Make those appointments that you keep with yourself. You wouldn't call someone that you were going to show a home to later and say, I just don't feel like it today. Can we reschedule? Right? You're there, regardless of what's going on, regardless of if you feel like it. Have your prospecting time be the same. Don't schedule other things over it. Don't move it around and say, I'll just do, I'll do it tomorrow instead. It really has to be something that you keep as an appointment with yourself, because the more that you prospect, it's a numbers game. The more people you're going to connect with and the more appointments you're going to set, meaning you have more business. And the great thing about CINC and having these longer term leads is you're able to fill your pipeline. Instead of constantly chasing, oh, I need a closing for next month, I need a closing for next month, you're going to have business coming every month because you'll be filling your pipeline with leads that are, essentially the work you do today is going to set your paycheck for 3 months from now, 6 months from now, etc. So those are our P filters, and I'm going to pause for a quick drink. And Lisa, I see, is asking for some more scripting info. So again, we will talk about that in Q&A. Please continue to send your questions into the chat or the Q&A, whichever you prefer, so we can cover those at the end in our Q&A session. Okay, so now let's take a look really quickly. I'm going to use my reset all button. This just takes us back to default. And I'm going to use this test lead that I have in here to show how to move pipeline and the process we want to use when we contact leads for the first time. So I just set the pipeline stage back to new lead. So we're going to pretend that this is a brand new lead that I'm calling for the first time. And again, not everyone's going to answer when we call in the first dial. That's totally fine. What we have found is that leaving a voicemail on the first dial is actually a no-no, because then it gives the lead the ability to screen their phone calls, maybe even block our number. And that's just simply because we're calling a stranger and we're saying most of the time, hey, call me back if there's anything I can help you with. And they're thinking, I don't know this person, right? There's nothing they can help me with. Another statistic that I learned from John Marone, who's our conversion specialist and hosts our scripting call, is that I think it's 86% of home buyers, when they were surveyed, thought that an agent couldn't solve their true problem. So when we leave a voicemail to someone that we don't know and just say, hey, let me know if I can help with your home search, they're probably not going to call us back. So it doesn't mean we should never leave a voicemail. It just means we don't want to do it. For me, I'd say within the first 10 dials. I'm going to save that until I've tried a few more times. So what happens if I call this lead and they don't answer? I'm going to click on my pipeline stage if I'm having to do this manually and move them over to attempted contact. Now, if I wanted to go a step further, I could click into quick actions, click add note, and simply say that I called and didn't leave a voicemail. I could say voicemail said, it's so hard to type when you know that there are 100 people watching you. So voicemail said Cayla. So basically I'm telling myself, yes, this actually is the person that it said it was. Now, if you're looking and you see in the corner over here, this is Grammarly. This is not CINC. That's just my Grammarly subscription. So ignore that when we're typing notes in here. All right, so we've moved this lead into attempted contact. Now, if this lead had registered, say, 13 days ago, and they were attempted contact, they would now be in my P2 filter. But again, this is a test lead, so we're going to pretend that this is the next day and this lead's in my P2 filter and I'm giving them a call back. Now, let's say I call again and they don't answer. That's okay. I can just, again, leave a note saying called, no voicemail. Now, what does this do? Why do I like to leave a note when I call if they don't answer? That's because when I click into this lead by clicking their name, it will actually tell me how many times I've called here in the communication hub. So this is great for you to know how many times you've called. So it's time to leave a voicemail, for example, or it's just time to try something else. Now, let's say I come in the next day and this lead's still in my P2 filter. So I give them another call and they answer, but they hang up on me. Do I move them to contacted? No, because we reserve contacted for leads that we've had a good conversation with. So again, I would leave a note. I would say called someone, because I don't know who. Now let's say it's my afternoon call block and I call them back and they answer. I say my opening line and they engage with me. Awesome. So I'm now having a great conversation with this person. And by the end of the call, they have answered what we call the 3 W's. That's going to be what they're looking for, when they're looking to move, and their why or their motivation. So what is going to be the criteria? City, price point, beds, baths, what do they need to, get into their next home? The when is going to be their time frame. Is it next month? Is it sometime in the next year? Is it when they retire in 2 years? What's the time frame? And then their why is their motivation. And if you join our bi-weekly scripting call, you'll learn that it's not just to get closer to work. There's always a little bit more. What would getting closer to work do for them? It would, if we dig deep and ask, they will maybe let us know that they want to coach their daughter's softball team, but they can't because their commute doesn't allow them to get to the field in time. Or it's that they want to move to be closer to their family. Why? Because their, brother just had their first baby and they want their kids to grow up together, right? There's always a deeper why than just, oh, I want to be a little closer to work, or I want to be a little closer to my family. So we're going to dig deep and figure out why. So when I've had that good conversation, they've told me those 3 W's, I am going to now move them to contacted. And now I'm also going to leave a note, but this time it needs to be a little more detailed. And you'll notice that this has a category up top. All of these have to do with calls, which is the default. But if it was something else, we can move it over to general, which would not count this as a call. So I'm going to put in what they were looking for. I'm going to put in when they're looking to move. I want to put in their why, and I'm going to put in any details that I find out. So if you were talking to me, am I married? Do we have children? Do we have pets? What do we do for work? Is there someone else helping me with the decision? A family member, a friend? What do I like to do? Did I mention that, oh, I've always passed this neighborhood that I love on my way to do some sort of hobby? So basically details in here to help you continue to build rapport in the relationship when we follow up, because people do business with those they know, like, and trust. And we build someone's trust and get them to like us when we show interest in them, and we can show interest in them by remembering these details and all the things they told us. So if you're, and I personally do like to keep my note here, like in this list format, because it's a little bit easier for me to then come back and read it later instead of a big long paragraph that I have to kind of skim through looking for what I need. So and if you guys hear snoring, it's my dog that's asleep behind me. So I just wanted to point that out because she's getting pretty loud. So once I have all these good details in here, I'm going to mark this as a pinned note. And if you've known CINC for a long time, that used to be called a sticky note. So the sticky note is now called a pinned note, but it does the same thing. Pin basically means it's going to pin up to the top of the lead's profile. And then our notify field down here, this is where I could let someone on my team know, for example, our lender that we work with, know that this person needs to get pre-qualified. So ask them to give them a call. It could be just the person, the operations manager, the team lead on my team, let them know that this is someone that I connected with and had a great conversation with. When we do that here in this notify field, it will add that into the note that we notified someone, and it will also send them a notification to check this out. So from there, I'm not done yet, but now I'm done prospecting on this lead because I've now successfully contacted them. Now I need to start thinking in terms of follow-up. And there's going to be two ways that we follow up with this person right away. And the first is going to be that we set a reminder to do our follow-up phone call. So in CINC, reminders help us follow up. So I'm going to click into quick actions, and underneath where I've been adding a note, I'm now going to add a reminder. And so we've got 3 different types of reminders we can choose from: call, email, or other. Most of our follow-ups are going to be phone calls. If they specifically request something via email, or we know that we need to send them something in the mail or pop by, or anything other than a call or an email, I can select other. But most of the time we'll just roll with the default, which is a phone call. And now we have some details to put in here. So some people, to kind of teach you some tips I've learned along the way, some agents do like to copy and paste the first note into the details here. Some will simply say, follow up on next summer home purchase. Hobby is soccer at the Y. So in other words, we're not always just calling to say, hi, how's your home search going? Hi, how's your home search going? We can absolutely say that. Hi, this is Cayla. We spoke a few weeks ago about, you guys looking at buying a home next summer. How's that search going? And then they're going to be like, oh, we're finding some homes that we like. Oh, great. What are you being drawn to? And then we can be like, oh, I drove past the Y the other day and saw this soccer game going on, blah, 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 right? We can drop those little details about that to let them know that we remembered. And I just out of the corner of my eye saw, do you find some leads prefer text? Yes, I do find that some leads prefer text. I think the best thing is just to ask them. So I would ask them, when I follow up with you in a few weeks to see how things are going, would you prefer that I call, text, or email? And have them tell you instead of trying to guess. Now, that being said, I think you can stay in touch via text, but I think it's a little bit harder to build rapport via text. So I would probably, text a couple times and then also call, just so you can continue to build that rapport. So now we need to pick when we're going to follow up. So the date of today is October 6th, and my rule of thumb is to follow up every 30 days or so. So I'd be looking sometime around November 6th. Now that is a Saturday, so I would back up and say the 4th or the 5th or even the 8th or the 9th. It's going to be sometime around that 30-day mark, but it doesn't have to be super stringent. You can make your decision based on kind of what's coming up around that time, if it's a holiday, for example. Now, as for the time, if they tell you, for example, that they do shift work and you know that they are asleep in the morning and you would never call them in the morning, you can pick a certain time. What I prefer to do is to select 8 a.m. for all of my reminders, not because I'm going to do them at 8 a.m., but because I don't like to be dinged with a bunch of pop-ups and notifications throughout the day. It super breaks my focus, which is, for example, why I had to bring up the fact that my dog was snoring behind me, because I just am easily distracted. So I like to set everything for 8 a.m. so that way they all pop up at 8 a.m. And I just know I have some time that day to get that done. It doesn't mean that I have to do them at 8. It means that I'm going to get them done sometime that day. And it saves me from being distracted by little pop-ups on my phone and in my email all day. So I said that we actually had 2 ways to immediately follow up with the lead. We just took care of the first one by setting that reminder. So now we need to take a look at the second way, which is going to be the saved search. Now, you are probably familiar with the saved search, but maybe you're not familiar with how to adjust it based on what the lead told you. Now I'm going to come over into the activity column, and here it says 0 saved. Again, this is a test lead, so it wasn't created the normal way that most are. So for most leads, it should say 1 saved, and it'll have some basic information that CINC chose based on the homes the lead was looking at. But because I didn't look at any homes when I registered this test lead, I have no saved search. So we're going to be creating this one from scratch. But it's important to do this even when there's already a saved search available, because again, it's basic based on the homes the lead has looked at. Now that could mean that they looked at a $5 million home, but they just told you that their budget is $500,000. CINC didn't have any way to know that, but now you know that. And so you get to make that adjustment. So the homes that hit the lead's email via property alerts are based on what they actually told you about. So I'm going to click where it says 0 saved. Now, if there was already a saved search, it would tell me that kind of basic criteria here. Either way, if there's one yet or not, we're going to click to edit. So here in this page, in this screen, I understand can look really overwhelming at first, but it's actually laid out really well for you to very easily be able to see what should come next. So we're here in our search filters and we've got results already. We've got 2,000 results. You'll be able to watch as I make changes, watch this number come down. So we're going to go back to search filters and we're going to put in the city of Franklin. Now I start to type my city in. I let my drop-down menu open up and I'm going to put in that city, and notice my search results went down to 631. Now I'm also going to put in Mount Juliet. My results went up a little bit. So now I've got 2 cities, which is totally fine. You can also search by school district if your MLS allows us to do that, by zip code. You can search by neighborhood. So lots of different options here. Just start to type it in and let your menu open up and select it from this dropdown. Now, moving down, I also need to select beds. So maybe they said at least 3 would do them. So you're seeing it's giving us a live look at these new search results each time. Now, maybe they told me that their, budget they were looking at was like 415,000. Now, you guys as agents know that area, so you know how much above and below to adjust that to make it work in that area. So if you know that they could get a great 3-bedroom home in this area for say 375, then you can drop it down to that or even lower. But if they said they could go up to 415, maybe you think that your market is ready for some negotiations again, then maybe you want to say, we can go up to 430. And so now you see we're getting fewer and fewer results. So for someone who is a little bit further out, this is as much as I really like to do for their saved search. Now, if someone was, getting ready to move really soon, I would get more specific in here, but for most of our leads that are further out, this is pretty good. And so from here, I'm going to click create over here on my right-hand side. If this was already created, remember for most of those leads that already have one saved search created, it's going to say save instead, but it's the same deal. This is how it's going to look for most of it. And you have to click save or create, whichever it is, before you navigate away from this screen, or it will not save. So we have to click save. Now, as I scroll down, I'll show you where you can get more specific. You can make sure that it only shows them active homes here. If you don't have this setting on yours, call into CINC support. They can try to get it added, again, as long as your MLS will allow us to do that. As we scroll down, we can get specific about the building and about features. But most of the time, I just like to leave that alone. Now, when I flip over into my search results, here are all those results, and I picked 2 places that are very far apart. So we can see those 80 search results plotted out on the map. And this is also where we could come in and draw a custom search in as well. Now, if I did that, I would want to take my cities out. But I want to leave my cities. And we have to take the cities out because it has to be more than it cannot. Let me kind of break this down. It's a little bit confusing to talk about, but we can have multiple cities. No big deal. But if we try to do a city and a zip code, they compete against each other. But could we have multiple zip codes if zip codes are the only ones we had? Yes. So it has to be one location type, and a location type is a city. Another location type is a zip code. Another location type is your neighborhood. So we have to do one location type at a time, but within that location type, I can use multiple of those. So multiple zip codes, multiple cities, etc. I hope that makes sense. So when I scroll down here, I can also see the results, those 80 results. And just so I can kind of, while we're here on this thing, someone asking if they don't have the send property alert here, I wonder if that person is unsubscribed from emails or maybe has a bad email address. So I would check that because those are the only things off the top of my head I can think of that would make this so you wouldn't have this button here. So if they are subscribed to emails and have a good email, I would call support and ask about that one. So, and I'll show you how we got back here to this saved search in a moment when we're finished on this screen here. So from here, I can kind of preview the different homes that we have available, and then I can actually select a few.
I didn't get that.
Siri thinks I'm talking to her. So I'm going to select a few if I want to go ahead and send a couple out and click share properties. And I'm wondering now if I have that send property alert button because I'm a CINC admin, AKA a CINC employee. So I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to check on that for our next one. But from here, I can quickly send an email out saying, hi, it was great speaking with you today. Here's a few homes that I think you'll be really interested in. Let me know what you think about them. So I start to get a feel for what you're looking for. So that is a quick overview of our saved search. Really quickly, I'll also show you where you can change the frequency. So if somebody says, hey, unsubscribe me, I'm getting way too many emails, you can say, I'm so sorry about that. Before I unsubscribe you, would you be interested in receiving them just at a little, slower frequency? Here's where you can come in and make that change. And then of course we need to save. So do they let us know if the homes are still available? You can click on them here. Now, if to see the status. Now, if, however, you had put in here all the statuses, but the homes will be active and contingent. If you had said only active homes, then all you'd be seeing in the search results are active homes. So just to remind you how we got to the saved search from this dashboard, it's here in the activity column. And where it says one saved, we can click. Here's that snapshot and then edit. So that is where you get to this on the dashboard. Awesome. So that is what we have to do for every lead that we have that good conversation with. Move them to contacted, add the note, add the reminder, adjust the saved search. CINC will automatically send the property alerts based on the saved search, and we send them automatically based on the frequency that is set. Most will send daily. So now we just have a few minutes left together. I want to make sure that we quickly cover our follow-up, our F filters, and then go ahead and circle back to the Q&A with all the questions that you put in that I have not been able to get to live in the moment. So we've already talked through our P filters. These are our daily prospecting filters, where our F filters are our daily follow-up filters. And so if you remember when we were setting a reminder, we had 3 types. We had call, email, and other. And those directly correspond to our 3 follow-up filters: call reminders, email reminders, and other reminders. So this is super easy, a lot more straightforward than the P filters even. So when I click into F1, what I'm going to see today are my call reminders, but they have to be either due today or overdue. So we can see here again, this is a test site, so it's not as clean as we'd like to see real live sites. We see overdue reminders. -4 means 4 days overdue. -18 means 18 days overdue, etc. So again, we're only going to see it here if it's a call reminder that is due today or overdue. So let's say that Destiny CINC is my lead. I did call and follow up with her today. How do I clear this out so it's no longer here in my F1 filter? I'm going to click into Destiny's profile by clicking on her name here, and then click into this Reminders and Plans tab. Reminders and Plans here, and simply mark this as completed. Now, when I mark that as completed, when I refresh my dashboard by doing my little refresh button here, she also has one due, so it's -18. So that's not as satisfying as I wanted it to be, because we still see a lead Destiny CINC up here. But basically the Destiny CINC that was -4 days is no longer here. So you have to keep on top of marking these as complete to have them disappear from your F filters. Now, however, if I just checked in with Destiny on that call and we didn't set an appointment, she's still someone that I'm gonna just continue to follow up with. We have to go ahead, and when we mark that reminder as complete, we need to go ahead and schedule a new one. And so it's possible that if someone that we marked as contacted, that we went ahead and marked that reminder as complete, but we forgot to set a new one, they're kind of essentially lost in our platform. So I'm going to click reset all really quickly. And that's what we have the danger filter set up for. So our danger filter shows us leads that are contacted, but the reminder is not set. And here we see Destiny that we just marked that reminder as complete on. So this is the only way we really have to find people who we marked as contacted, but we either never set a reminder on them or we completed one and forgot to set a new one on. So I want to show you how you can all create this F4 filter to help you find your leads that are kind of falling through the cracks. And in fact, this was called a danger filter by the person at CINC who created it, because they said that these leads are a danger to your paycheck. Because if we're not following up with people, then we actually are not going to be able to continue to get to know that person and, remember, build them to know, like, and trust us. So let me show you how you can also create this F4 filter. And in fact, you can use this method that I'm about to show you to create any number of filters that you'd like to use. It doesn't have to be just for the danger filter. You're going to be able to use this method to build tons of different filters that will help you be more efficient when you're working in the platform. So I'm going to click reset all and walk you through how to create this danger filter. So I'm actually going to close my saved filters, and I'm going to start first by filtering by pipeline. So I'm going to click into my pipelines, and I'm going to say, show me all contacted leads. So here we've got people who are contacted. Next, I'm going to click into my filters, and then again on show all filters, so I can have my big, nice list here. And say, show me leads that have a next reminder date that is not set. So if you remember, in our P filters and in our F filters, we had our blue breadcrumbs. Here are our breadcrumbs. We've got leads that are marked as contacted, but they have a reminder date that's not set. And so let's save this set of filters so we can do one click to check it each time instead of having to do this filtering for pipeline and for next reminder date each time. So how do I save these as that saved filter? At the bottom of our filters list, we have save current filters. And this is where we can give it a name. So now I'm going to do a quick reset all again. Go into my saved filters, and there's our F4. I named it Webinar Danger so I could remember which one it was. So I can actually click into it. I could change the name if I wanted to. I could set this as public so everyone on the site can use it, not just me, everyone on the site can use it. And save it. If I didn't click this public button, it would just mean only I could use it. So that way you don't have a super messy dashboard where there's a ton of saved filters and everyone's confused about which ones to use. But also, because this is not my site, I can delete it and start over if I needed to. So essentially, we just have to do our filtering to the leads that we want and click Save Current Filters to be able to save that. So our P filters are going to help us prospect, make sure we are contacting the people who need to be contacted today. Our F filters are going to help us to remember to follow up on everyone, staying in touch with someone to make sure that we stay top of mind. So if they told us they were ready to move next year, we don't call next year and then tell us, oh, we actually bought 3 months ago. That's a very frustrating phone call to make. I want to make sure that never happens to you. So following up with frequency and using these F filters, setting your reminders and keeping true to them are going to help make sure that if someone's situation does change, you always are there to have that conversation with them and be there to help them with that situation change. So now I'm going to go through our chat and Q&A and just pop through the questions that we have been asked. So if you don't have any questions and you do need to leave, I realize we are 4 minutes over on our hour together. So I just want to give a very quick thank you so much for everyone who's joined so far. Really enjoyed chatting with you and hope you were able to take away some good things from today. So if I need to see you next time, goodbye. Join us for our other webinars. And thank you, Katie. And thank you, Cheryl and Tony. Appreciate all the thank yous. Makes me feel like I did a good job today. So let's first go to Lisa's question. Are there any trainings on campaigns? So it sounds like you were asking about drip campaigns. And I want to give a big caution that if you are currently using drip campaigns, those are being sunset, which is the tech word for deleted, doing away with. Those are going to be sunset on October 14th. Because we have replaced them with an even better option called auto tracks. So if you click into automations and then auto tracks, and this is permission based. So if you're an agent on a site and you don't see your automations and auto tracks feature, it's possible that your site owner just needs to give you access to it. So I will say, Lisa, there's no training on campaigns, but there is training on auto tracks. And if you go to cincommunity.com, and click on our webinars here, you can register for our levels of automation. This is going to cover auto tracks and behavioral messaging. And then in conjunction with that, the day after, we do an AI webinar for anyone who's interested in CINC AI. So that's just cincommunity.com. You can either click webinars from the homepage or use our webinars dropdown. This is also, just while we're here, I'll show you where you can access our recording gallery. So lots of different playlists of different recordings here, if you don't want to wait until next week for any of those. So Wendy asked, if someone says they want to buy next year, how often should we call to continue to build rapport? Again, every 30 days or so. We probably weren't that far when you asked that question, but we want to be calling every 30 days. Now, if someone says that they want to buy because they're retiring in 2 years and they want like a beach house, maybe at that point I wouldn't call every 30 days, but I would be kind of trying to talk to them about maybe buying sooner and renting until then. In that case, I would probably call every 30 days, but I would feel it out in, those cases where someone is a little bit further out. But for the most part, it's going to be every 30 days or so. So how can we activate dialer campaigns? So it's going to be difficult for me to show you here because I don't have the dialer on this account, but I can kind of do a little dummy preview of it. So the dialer, for anyone that's not aware, is the CINC dialer. And so it works like other dialers do. It's a single line dialer where you can queue up a list of leads you want to call, and it will automatically dial the lead for you, make the connection if they answer, so you can have that conversation. And when it does, it will automatically pull up the lead's profile. So it's really easy for you to take notes and see who you're calling. So let's say, for example, I wanted to call everyone in my P3 filter. I could pull up the P3 filter, and in my mass actions menu up here, there's going to be a dialer option. And so this is the fastest way to start that dialer campaign. It's going to be go to your list of leads, click mass actions, and then select the dialer campaign from here. Now, one thing I will show you is we have a really awesome help center, help.cincpro.com, and you can actually come in and search for dialer here. And there are going to be a ton of articles that kind of walk you through how to use the dialer here, since I'm not able to show you right on my test site. Let's see. Ooh, lots of thank yous. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Sally, how can we filter by the star rating? So first, let's talk about what the star rating is. So the star rating that Sally is asking about is here, where it says star 27, star 87. So this is actually called a quality score. However, I think we made an error when we named that quality score. It's more like an engagement score because it's not telling us whether the lead is good or bad. That number can actually go up or down based on how engaged the lead is with the site. I don't really believe in good or bad when it comes to leads. I think there are people who are ready to buy or sell now, and there's people who are ready to buy or sell another time. There's not good or bad. So the quality score, I wish we had called it an engagement score. So I'm going to say to take it with a grain of salt. The grain of salt here, what I mean is that it doesn't mean that if someone has a high score, they're ready to buy now, or if they have a low score, they're a bad lead. I just don't want us to think of it that way. But if you absolutely want to use it, and when I say, I'll back up for a second, when we say that it goes up or down based on how engaged they are, that means it can go up if they logged in today, up if they clicked on multiple properties, up if they opened an email, and then down for the opposite. Maybe they haven't logged in a while, so it goes down. So again, just because those things are true doesn't mean I shouldn't call those people today. So that's my caveat on the quality score. If you do want to filter by the quality score, in our filters, we do have a quality score filter where you can say show leads with a quality score of at least 50, or you can do something more custom here. So that is the quality score filter. You're welcome, Sally. So I got a question from Shane. What do the flags mean? So here, for example, this one by my filter test lead, it has this little flag. And so what this means is that this lead has not accepted the terms and conditions, meaning maybe they were an imported lead, maybe they're a lead that you brought in via Zapier from a third party that doesn't have the same terms and conditions that CINC does. So this is actually, we can call this a lawyer-funded flag, meaning that CINC's legal team wanted to protect all of our agents from treating these leads as though they had accepted the site's terms and conditions. So what the flag means is that we won't be able to mass text them or add them to a mass dialer campaign. However, Shane, you did ask about, do they work in the dialer? You can add them to a dialer campaign. The only thing that will happen is when it comes to that lead, and their profile opens up, they will have a little button here that says dial lead or call lead, or so I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's something like that. You have to do one extra click to actually send that call out, because the flag means, and I'll break down what it means when they haven't accepted the site's terms and conditions. Essentially, they haven't given us express written permission to use mass communications on them. And that's called, trying to remember what it's called. It's like TOOP. It's something about, there was some law around mass communications, and you guys are really testing me, having me try to remember this all, because this all happened a couple years ago, but it's something about mass communications. And you can search TOOP, TOUPP, if you're interested in more on that. But basically, they can sue you, and there are lawyers specifically who sue companies just for mass texting or mass dialing for someone that has not accepted that site's terms and conditions. So long story short, the flag prevents you from doing that because it would open you up to a lawsuit if it was not there. Now, if this is a lead that came from another source and you need to, you want to be able to mass dial them, or you want to be able to mass text them, you can get that flag to go away. The only thing you have to do is send them a quick email, and the fastest way is to send them an email with a home attached to it. But if we send them an email and they click on that home, it will bring them over to the site. And before they can view that home, they just have to click a button that says they accept the terms and conditions. And when they do, it will remove that flag. And then you're able to mass text and add them to a regular dialer campaign, just like anyone else. Thank you for sticking with me as I got a little tongue-tied on that one. So Diane was asking, what kind of account do we have to access the dialer campaigns? That's a great question. We talked about the dialer, but not how you can get it turned on. So if you are a site owner, you can request to have the dialer turned on, or by calling support, or again, this is for site owners. They can come down to the settings option here and then click into the dialer. And you have to go through these steps to turn it on, because there is a cost to use the dialer. It is $75 per 3 dialers, meaning that if I had a team of 7 and I wanted a dialer for everyone, I'd be paying 75 times 7. No, 75 times 3, because I would need 7 dialers, but I would be licensed for 9. So 75 times 3 to cover 7 people. But if I only wanted 3 people on my team to use it, I'd only be paying 75. So if you want to add a dialer to someone, they have to have a CINC agent number, and we would come here and click add dialer. You have to type the word dialer to confirm. That's basically saying, yes, I accept those monthly charges, and it'll just be added on to your charges, and it would be charged at the same time as your CINC platform fee. So a site owner has to turn this on, and you can give it to access, give different agents access to it just here in this settings dialer screen. So that's a great question, Diane. Thank you for asking me, so I could cover that it is an added cost. All right, I still have some questions to get to. So if you'll just give me a moment to scroll and make sure. You're welcome, everybody. I see some thank yous for those answers. If I missed you, you are very welcome. So let's see. I think we are almost there. Hi, can you please show me where I can see the number of attempted calls for a lead? Absolutely. We're just going to click the lead's name to open up their profile. And then here in the communication box, this is where we can see how many dials we have made. All right, now I'm getting up to where we were talking about scripting. So again, I do want to plug that we have a bi-weekly scripting call where you can actually talk, do role play and talk through objections and practice the opening line and practice closing, asking for the appointment. So this will be very brief, and I will point you again either to watch our recordings here on the recording, but also plan to join us live again every other Monday. So our opening line, and let me actually see, I'm going to see if I can pull up, if I can do this quickly, I'm going to do it quickly. If not, then I will not do this. Oh, let's see. So basically our opening line is going to be, and I can't find my my slides that I had readily available, so I won't make you guys wait and watch me as I look for it. So also, we do talk about this on day 3 at CINC University as well. So, and I see Lisa saying you're in the biweekly class, they never talk about what to say to old leads. It's the same. So whether it's a lead that registered today or they registered 300 days ago, if I've never spoken to them or I spoke to them a long, long time ago, I'm using the same script. And it's simply, this is the opening line. I'm going to say it slowly first, and then I'll come back and I'll say it in the tonality and the way we want to say it on the phone with someone. So let's say I'm calling this lead Cayla here. I would say, actually, let's pick someone that has, we're going to call Lennon, who's looking in Nashville. So I would say this: hi, this is Cayla from the home search site. I saw you were looking at some homes in Nashville. I'm curious, are you looking to move in the next few months, or are you just browsing? So I'll say that now again, slowly. Hi, this is Cayla from the home search site. I saw you were looking at some homes in Nashville. I'm curious, are you looking to move in the next 3 to 6 months, or are you looking to move in the next few months, or are you just browsing? Now we have to practice that so you can say it a little bit more like this, so you have good tonality and excitement and you sound interested. Hi, this is Cayla from the home search site. I saw you're looking at some homes in Nashville. I'm curious, are you looking to move in the next few months, or are you just browsing? So again, whether that person registered today or they registered 100, 300, 3,000 days ago, if I've never spoken to them or I spoke to them a long time ago, I'm saying that same opening line. You'll notice I didn't say the lead's name. I didn't reference what site I was calling from. I just said I'm calling from the home search site. Saw you're looking at some homes in Nashville. I'm curious, are you looking to move in the next few months, or are you just browsing? And what that does is it takes away the ability for that person to say, oh yeah, I'm really not looking for anything right now, hang up. Because they're going to hear you say, are you just browsing? They're going to say, yeah, I am just browsing. And then you're going to say awesome or perfect or great, whatever sounds good to you, whatever sounds that's easier for you to say. I would probably say perfect. That's exactly what this site is for. While I've got you, what's got you searching right now? Or what exactly are you looking for? Or tell me a little bit about what you're looking for. And we're just opening up to have that conversation. Now, I mentioned a little earlier in the call that we dig deep to find out the lead's true why, their true motivation. We don't want to say, oh, want to get closer to work? Great. How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? We don't just want to be order takers and kind of tick down our list of questions and find out what they're looking for, but not why they're looking for it. So we have to dig deep looking for that motivation. And then when we feel like we have the motivation, and again, there's a lot more steps to this, and I want you, really, really want you to join that webinar. We're going to close and say, okay, Lennon, if I could find you that 4-bed, 3-bath house, in the heart of Nashville, that's closer to work, so you could get home in time to coach your daughter's softball games and really be able to build those memories like you had with your dad growing up. If I could find that home for you, would you be willing to move a little sooner? And they're going to say yes, because why wouldn't you move a little sooner if you could find me exactly what I'm asking for, and you've reminded me of the motion of my motivation? I'm going to say yes. But if someone on the off chance does say no, that's basically their last ditch effort to give you an objection or a problem that we can then solve. So if they say, well, yeah, but we really need to get this house that we're living in now ready to sell first. well, we can help give them evaluation of it now and give them advice on what to do to get it ready to sell. If it's, well, we really need to save a little bit more money, maybe we can tell them about a program we have for a reduced down payment. But when we close that way, we either get an enthusiastic yes or a yes, but, and then we get to help solve that problem. And then we're going to set our appointment where we do our buyer or our seller consultation. So I saw a question, is there any special training for seller leads? There's really nothing different. We tweaked the opening line to say that we could even say we're calling from the home valuation site. I saw you were looking for the valuation of a home in Nashville. I'm curious, are you looking to sell in the next few months, or are you just looking for the value right now? But really, it's the same thing. There's not a lot different to do for seller leads. We just need to tweak the appropriate lines, or excuse me, appropriate words in that opening line, and still try to find out what's the reason that they're looking for the value right now. What's the reason they're thinking about selling? But it's important to set an appointment where we meet face to face. We can continue to talk on the phone and text, that's great, but meeting face to face is what really lets you build that big rapport. You are welcome to everyone. All right, I see some questions now in my Q&A box, and then I think we will wrap up for the day. And so these are questions about the saved search. And so Wendy, I would recommend that if there's ever a time where you think the saved search behaves in a way that it shouldn't. In other words, you put in one filter and it comes up with results that you didn't expect, or potentially you did the same search on your MLS portal and it's different than what you see here. Definitely call support because they can look to see if there's some sort of switch flipped in the back that just made something act the way that we didn't expect it to. So always call support because it's difficult to troubleshoot that later because the data changes like minute by minute. And by that, I mean homes are selling, more homes are coming on the market. It's really hard to troubleshoot them later. So definitely call support if you're still seeing an issue. But I do see you also have a question about how often should I call the ones that say they're just searching or the ones that want to buy a year from now? Definitely every 30 days or so. You want to always be calling. I would err on the side of calling too much because once you've built rapport with someone, it doesn't feel awkward to be calling them. So I would be calling every 30 days. And Alex asked me a question. This will be our last one for the day. Thank you, Alex, for our fabulous last question. How do you rename the save filters? Super easy. When we click into them, I'm going to click into danger, the one that we created down here. When I click into the filter itself, I'm going to click my little pencil icon here up in the name. And then we can change what it's called here. Super easy there. Awesome. We have had a really fun session. You asked me really great questions, kept me on my toes, which I love. I'm so grateful that you all spent this hour, almost hour and a half with me today. Thank you so much. I want to remind you that this was being recorded and it will be uploaded here to cincommunity.com. You can access this here in the webinar recording gallery, but I also invite you to register for our additional webinars. We have, again, something every week. And then, of course, join us at CINC University. Next year, we are visiting 11 cities. So we have our brand new dates that are up on the site today. So we're going to be going all across the country and to Canada, fingers crossed, in 2022. They will let us in. Please join us live next year if you're able. It's a really great session, and I will hopefully be at many of these cities and able to meet you live. Again, I really appreciate your time. I won't be in Phoenix in November. Hopefully I'll be back out traveling next year. So I'll have to see you at another city in 2022. We were going to come to Vancouver, but instead we're in Seattle. We had some issues with our travel to Canada this year. And so we are going to Toronto, but did not want to plan 2 and then have to cancel 2 again. So hopefully if you're in Vancouver, you can come join us in Seattle instead. And then I'll just hop the border and we'll just have a good time in Vancouver after the training. Thank you all again. I'm appreciating your thank yous and your accolades in the chat. You guys were an awesome group, and I'm really grateful that we got to spend time together today. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of the day. Hope we see you on other webinars and then in person either this year or next. Bye, everybody.